Good evening. I'd like to call the February 10th, 2015 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Coombs.
Here.
Council members Bagley, Christensen, Finley.
Here.
Levison.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Santos.
Here.
Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
Okay, let's stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I gave Councilmember Bagley permission to stay home tonight. He wasn't feeling really well, so I thought it would be best.
Then we won't get sick.
Right. I'm also going to make a change in the order tonight. I'm going to move public invited to be heard up front before the special reports and presentation, because that could be a pretty long event. So I guess we'll go ahead and start with public invited to be heard. So anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to have his or her name on the list. Outside the council chambers, only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call, public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on that list will have the opportunity to speak during the public hearing items tonight, or at final call, public invited to be heard on any items at the end of the meeting. Well, I guess we can go ahead and, okay, we're good. Okay, first up is Ingrid Moore. Ingrid Moore? Oh. Yeah, we moved the agenda around a little bit.
Oh, let me turn the mic on for you just a second.
Thank you. My name is Ingrid Moore. I live at 925 Little Leaf Court, Longmont. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I came here tonight to express my concern about the recent revelations that the data in the airport noise complaint log was manipulated and misrepresented to the council. For years now, we citizens have been trying to convince the city that the noise from Mile High skydiving is a serious problem, and have repeatedly petitioned that something be done. We've used the only means we have available to us to document our misery, which is the complaint system. And now we find out that for at least the last 3 years, our formal complaints were being systematically and arbitrarily deemed invalid, essentially making them disappear. And that's sickening. It's also disheartening to realize that this was only just now being discovered, an indication that there really has been very little board oversight, council oversight of the board. So I wanted to propose something. The hiring of the new airport manager is a perfect opportunity for the city council to partially remediate the damage created by this irresponsible behavior. The airport advisory chairman must be dismissed from the board immediately. He purposefully misrepresented community complaint numbers over a 3-year period, and he's proven he can never be trusted to honestly practice fairness and openness. In addition, the ordinance defining the function of the Airport Advisory Board should be immediately rewritten to include a mandate to support and enhance the airport's relationship with the surrounding community. There's nothing in there about that. And in dealing with noise. This was not a consideration during the selection of the current AAB members, and so, in my opinion, they've become a group of narrowly focused aviation zealots who represent only their own interests. Therefore, the existing AAB members should also be dismissed. Maybe 1 or 2 current members whose qualifications are aligned with the new charter could be reappointed, but to fill the remaining board positions, new members should be chosen using the new criteria. It's urgent that the board chairman and members be dismissed and the other board members be reappointed as soon as possible. The Longmont Area Comprehensive Plan cannot go forward with the existing AAB as advisors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carla Behrens?
My name is Carla Behrens. I live at 904 Little Leaf Court, Longmont, 80503. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I also am dismayed and discouraged to learn, was dismayed and discouraged to learn that the data in the airport noise complaint log was manipulated to show that there have been fewer valid complaints about the excessive noise generated by mile-high skydiving than there actually are, or have been, and continue to be. For this, I fault the Airport Advisory Board that made this erroneous report to the City Council and which effectively invalidated the majority of our formal complaints for the last 3 years. I would hope that this situation can be remedied ASAP by the City Council, whose job it is to oversee the Airport Advisory Board. In addition, having read the minutes, many sets of minutes from previous AAB meetings over the last few years, I am appalled by their callous disregard for the tax-paying citizens of Longmont, who have often been negatively affected by airport noise, particularly that generated by mile-high skydiving. Thank you.
Ada Hansen?
My name is Aiden Hansel, and I'm 10 years old, and I live in Longmont, and I'm a member of the Youth of the Earth Council, and we're planning this year's Longmont Earth Day, which is going to be on April 22nd, and we're going to do it at the Boulder County Fairgrounds, and it's going to be a great opportunity for adults and children to learn about how to take care of the earth. We received a $500 grant from the City of Longmont, and it was greatly appreciated, and we used it to buy t-shirts from Goodwill and print our logo on it, like these ones, and we did it, so we bought it from Goodwill, so we didn't have to use new resources to make it, and it didn't have to be shipped from far away, and that would be air pollution, so it's better for the earth. And we're also doing another cool thing for the event called a youth booth, and it's where kids can display projects they've been working on and stuff they know, and teach people stuff they know about the event. About the earth and how to help the earth. And if anyone you know would like to do that, please tell them they can sign up by February 28th. And it'd be great for everyone to spread the word. And yeah, I hope it's going to be a really great event. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Gregerson?
Good evening. Thank you. That's a tough act to follow. So Aiden and his brother Julian are two of the members on the Youth of the Earth Council. Also, Councilman Bagley's daughter Danny is also on our youth council, as well as 9 other kids from Boulder, Erie, and elsewhere in Longmont. So I love exactly what Aiden said, so I want to second that. The grant that Aiden is talking about came through the Longmont Youth Council. And this has been a really fun thing for us. So us as Sustainable Revolution Longmont, last year when Earth Day came about, we noticed that there was nothing on a citywide scale, either in Longmont or Boulder. So this year, there is something huge going on, not in Boulder, but in Longmont. So as Aiden said, in addition to the money that we got from the Longmont Youth Council, we also got a $7,500 challenge grant from Oscar Blues Candide Foundation. We received a $4,600 grant from Boulder County to do extreme zero waste. We received a few other grants, and I also wanted to tell you, as far as some of the booths that signed up, we just this week had 2 different booths sign up from the city of Longmont. So I wanted to thank you about that. The Longmont Natural Resources Division will have a booth, an environmental educator booth, and they're also letting us use that big, huge earth, inflatable earth that was used from Rhythm on the River. And also the public library will be coming with their book cycle and their puppets. And the teen program at the library will also be there doing a craft. That said, gosh, I think almost every single department in the city has a role in environmental stewardship. Longmont Power and Communications, Sandstone Ranch are doing so many different things. I could just keep going with water and soil and gardens. So we would, because this is a Longmont event, it would be great to have more participation from Longmont than, say, Boulder County. So just, I mean, we love Boulder County too, but it is Longmont, and it is the mayor's birthday, which is Earth Day. So, I mean, happy birthday. So come on, let's, so anyhow, thank you very much again for the grant, and we really would appreciate everything from the Longmont Youth Council, the library, the resources division, and hopefully many more. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Jen? Yeah. What's your address? Did you?
Oh, sorry. It's 1011 Hover Street.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll be there.
I thought you were going to ask for a certain kind of cake or something. Okay, I get it.
German chocolate. All right. Kimberly Gibbs.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs, members of council. My name is Kim Gibbs. I live at 7468 Mount Sherman Road in Gun Barrel. I'd like to also talk about the 2014 airport noise complaint logs. I share the concerns that were raised earlier. So just a little bit of background first. As far as the logs go, you know, it's the airport manager's, one of his duties to maintain this log. And there's a couple different ways that people can register noise complaints. They can either fill out the online web form or send an email to the airport manager. And so he compiles the list throughout the year, and then at the end of the year, someone gets the joy of analyzing that data. And I think that data can be very valuable and useful to you in showing, you know, relatively how many complaints are there, where are they coming from, what type of aircraft activity are causing the complaints, because you can use that data to then adjust, potentially impose regulations and restrictions at the airport. It is important to have that information. Clearly, anonymous complaints are invalid. If you're going to register a complaint, you need to put your name on it. Personally, I usually register a complaint on one on Saturday and Sunday regarding the skydiving operation, and I feel like I've exercised a lot of restraint in that regard. Instead of registering one every time that obnoxious white and purple plane comes grinding its way over my home in Gun Barrel, about 8 miles from the airport. So in 2014, I registered 59 complaints, and all of them were deleted and considered invalid by the very creative analysis. So let's talk about that analysis. In 2014, there were a total of 1,646 noise complaints at the Vance Brand Airport. Skydiving complaints were about 90% of those. Airport Advisory Board member Don Dulce applied some creative analysis. He calculated the variance, standard deviation, and he came up with a magic number of 27. If you registered more than 27 complaints in the year, they were arbitrarily deleted. So he was able to invalidate 1,318 complaints. I'm almost out of time, so I'm gonna get to the punch. This is absolutely unacceptable conduct, especially from someone who's serving in a quasi-official capacity. I would suggest to you, and I realize that you're the decision maker here, but Don Dulce has to be removed from the Airport Advisory Board. And I hope that you'll take a close look at the board and the purpose that it is serving. Is it serving the community, or is it there to protect aviation interests? Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Dan Berry?
Good evening, council members. My name is Dan Berry. I live under the airport influence zone at 930 Champion Circle in Longmont. I'm also one of your newest Airport Advisory Board members, and I consider our board emerging as a contributive and generative board, contrary to the comments of Councilman Moore in the newspaper this morning. I want to say congratulations on getting a new airport manager. We're excited to have this in place. I also want to thank Assistant City Manager Lewis for being at the airport. That's been very, very beneficial. I consider myself a contributive and generative board member, and I've been reading through the airport master plan, the airport capital improvement plan, airport development plan, as well as the airport work plan. I'm sure you're all familiar with those. Within the airport business development plan is section 20, which does align completely with the Longmont area comprehensive plan. The point of my comments are, please include that. Make sure that I just ask you to pay attention to that airport section and continue to support the airport in the comprehensive plan. Living in the airport influence zone, I continuously see our city grow. And I see a lot of members from the Planning and Zoning Commission here this evening, and I asked the City Council and the Zoning Commission to pay particular attention to the master plan, especially section 2.11 that talks about the airport influence zone and the special restrictions that do come with that to ensure that we don't have building encroachment, to begin to mitigate these noise complaints, to create a better environment. That's what we're all for. I'm for that as well. And that's actually part 77. If you do a quick search on the online section of the master plan, you'll find that under section 77. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Marion Arndt?
Must be quite surprising, right?
Yeah.
My name is Mawin Arik, and I'm immigrant from South Sudan.
Okay.
I went to school in India when I was 16 years old. From India to here, American government decided that, okay, they can move me here.
And where do you live at now?
I'll get to that. And that's exactly the topic of why I'm here. They moved me to Denver, Lakewood. And then I began to go to school. I went to school for some living situations. I couldn't do it. So with the help of my other friends, agencies, they moved me to Boulder for a week, and then they moved me to Longmont in 2003. I've lived in a thing called in-between. At the time, quickly, like in about 9 months, I found a job at the First Lutheran Church. I worked there for 6 years until they laid me off in 2009. But then I went back to school again. So it's been a struggle. But I wanted to make it an American way. Work hard, and you will get there. But it has never been the same because I'm the only one here from when I migrated from where I came from. And so if I fail, then it's a bottom line. So my point is, I never dreamed of being homeless, but I am right now. It's a shame. I'm sad, very sad to be in that situation. What is the city doing? What is the city doing? Not everybody wants to be homeless.
Yeah.
Not everybody gave up to himself, including myself. I don't want to give up. I want to fight it. What is the city doing? Mayor comes, I go to your, don't be surprised too.
Yeah.
I go to one of your restaurants, bar, that you are a shareholder. It's called Red Zone. My college friends, we go there, hang out. I'm serious.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Your 3 minutes are up, and
all right.
I appreciate that.
And so,
thank you.
So I need the cities to do something about this homelessness. I'm not saying let's pick everyone up, but
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Strider Benson.
Mayor Combs, City Council, Strider Benston, 951 17th Avenue. I totally support the brother's what he's dealing with. I have had housing problems myself and have never felt entirely safe in it, but I keep trying. I came from a meeting this afternoon with Multicultural Action Committee and a new group, African American Association of Longmont. We're having a community invitation to all, forum and stories on the civil rights movement, Monday, February 23rd at 6 p.m. at Agape Center, the Front Range Christian Fellowship Center. The address is weird, but it's right across the highway from Walmart, 6 o'clock. 2 weeks from last night, Monday the 23rd, and stories and forum on the civil rights movement. And I will be one of the speakers, perhaps significantly so. And just with all that's going on, I didn't prepare anything to harass you guys with. I think Longmont generally is moving in the right direction on most types of issues, rights, and moving again in the right direction on environment, although we seem to have come to almost a full stop for a while. But nationally, we have to be aware there are people who are trying to bring Jim Crow back to this country and to bring in restrictions of the right to vote and crippling our education system, and some are trying to steal our Social Security and everything. Be aware, and part of this is educational as to what the heck is going on in the world, because when we went across the bridge in Selma, Alabama 50 years ago next month, it was to win the right to vote. And now that is being systematically and step by step stolen from us. By the way, you can't see the movie Selma in Longmont because we don't have a theater, but you got to see it. It is incredibly accurate in everything, and amazingly, even Bloody Sunday on the bridge. I got my head cracked open that day. I got knocked out twice. I woke up and I ran back through the horse charge to get back into town. And the portrayal of Lyndon was very accurate. He was complex, and he had two different agendas at the same time, and I thought Ava DuVernay did a wonderful job on portraying him, and she should have won the Academy Award for Best Director, and everybody in the country knows that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that ends first call, public invited to be heard. So now we'll move on to approving the minutes. Got to turn off the podium mic first. Okay. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move we approve the minutes of the January 13th regular session.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote on that. Oops. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I also move the approval of the January 27th regular session minutes. Second.
Mayor,
Yes. Councilmember Moore.
I have a minor correction. It's typos, but they are there. When the motion is made by Councilmember Levison on the emerald ash borer beetle, it's reading emerald ash borer beetle with a B-E-A-T-L-E.
Oh.
So if we could get that corrected.
Okay. So with that correction, let's vote. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent. Councilmember Levison.
I just want to note that that's the most popular beetle, the misspelling.
Hey, Valerie, are there any agenda revisions?
Yes, Mayor Coombs. Resolution R 2015-09 was added after your agenda originally went out. That will be added to the agenda as item 9E. It refers to the potential disposition of open space and referring that decision back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Okay. Now is there a report from the city manager?
No report, Mayor, Council.
Okay, so now it's time for our special reports and presentation.
Mayor Coombs, this is a joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss your 2015 Longmont Area Comprehensive Plan and Multimodal Transportation Plan. Aaron Fosdick will introduce it.
Okay, we're set. Thank you. Good evening, members of City Council, Mayor, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I really appreciate everyone being available tonight and joining us to kick off this project. We're very excited. I'm Erin Fosdick, and I'm a senior planner with the Department of Planning and Development Services. I'm joined by Phil Greenwald, transportation planner, also with the city. There's not quite enough room for everyone to sit up here, so we're going to kind of be coming and going. I'm also joined by our consultant team that's led by Darcy White with Clarion and Associates, and she'll introduce other members of her project team here in just a second. Tonight we're really here to start the discussion of updating and integrating the Longmont Area Comprehensive Plan and Multimodal Transportation Plan. This is something that we've been talking about for a while, so we're really thrilled to be here tonight to kick off the project. As you know, both of these plans were both updated 10 or more years ago. So during the past decade, obviously, our community has continued to grow and change, and so this is a great opportunity for us to take a look at some of the issues and opportunities that are facing Longmont today. And we're really thrilled to get some of your initial thoughts as we move forward in this process. So in terms of structure, I'm just going to provide a brief overview of our proposed approach to the project. I'll talk a little bit about how we anticipate the project working, the process working, that will result in a fresh and most importantly integrated plan, which will be a first for Longmont. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the groups and stakeholders that we envision involving throughout the process, and also give you some information on kind of our next and most immediate steps. Then I'll turn it over to Darcy. She's going to, of course, introduce the rest of the team and talk more about community engagement. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the themes and focus topics that we've heard a little bit about. We did conduct some initial stakeholder focus groups last week, so we'll be able to share some of that information with you, which may spur some of your thinking. But really what we're hoping to do tonight is primarily hear from you all. So I will not be standing up here talking the entire time. Just to give you a quick overview, the way that we're envisioning this project is really in 5 phases. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but if you'd like more detail, we can certainly provide it. Right now we're in phase 1, which is really the project initiation and issue identification phase. That's going to be going for another 6 weeks or so. During this phase, we're really obviously kind of scoping everything, getting everything set out, trying to work on a project brand and website, doing these initial committee meetings and leadership meetings like tonight, and also doing some of those initial stakeholder interviews. The next phase, where kind of the fun really starts, is kind of confirming some of those key focus areas and issues that we're going to address in the plan, developing a community profile, looking at various areas of change and stability within the community in terms of geographic areas. I should also mention that public engagement and community outreach is threaded throughout every one of these phases. So if I don't mention it specifically, know that obviously that's inherent within each of these phases. The third phase, which will really be kind of in the latter part of the summer, is going to be taking a look and assessing some of the alternatives for different focus areas and really looking at that community direction. After that, we'll be working on actually preparing the draft plan and looking at identifying implementation strategies, preparing the future land use and transportation maps, and kind of really working everything together. And then finally, finalizing the draft plan through public hearings, recommendations at the various advisory boards, and ultimately adoption at City Council, which we anticipate early next year. So we're thinking this is going to be a 12 to 18 month project by the time everything's said and done, and we're back here in front of you asking for final adoption. The other piece that will happen in phase 5 that's a little different from what we currently have is we're going to work on developing some web-based monitoring tools that will help policymakers and decision makers in terms of evaluating where we're at and where we're going. In terms of some of the groups in the process, we've really identified a great opportunity to engage the City Council and the Planning Commission as kind of this joint leadership team. And so we envision convening this group throughout various phases of the project. And we feel like it is an opportunity to have you be able to discuss things as a group. So hopefully this format will work, and we'll kind of figure out what works best as we go. Obviously, we have a staff team that's working on this. As I mentioned, Phil and I will be co-managing this project. Really anything related to transportation, as you know, is Phil's area of expertise, so he'll be kind of handling that aspect of things. But we are co-managing this along with our consultant team, who you'll meet here in just a second. We've also convened a technical advisory team that is representative of many of the departments here within the city. Obviously, this is a comprehensive plan, so we need to make sure that all interests in the city are represented. So we do have a staff team that's been pulled together with various department representatives. And then finally, we are planning on convening a coordinating committee. We outlined this a little bit in your communication. This is a group that's really going to kind of act as the policy advisory board. And we're envisioning this be made up of representatives from the various advisory boards that currently provide recommendations to council. So at some point, you know, we've let PZ know that we're going to be asking for representatives from Planning Commission. We'll also be asking for a representative from City Council, and some of the other advisory boards we'll be visiting with after we wanted to obviously chat with you all first, but we'll be visiting with them as well about selecting a representative. The other piece is our stakeholder group. This list is big already. During Public Invited to be Heard, I added 3 new stakeholder groups to my list. So this is something, you know, you see that last bullet and many more. I think we're constantly learning about new organizations, new groups in the community to reach out to, in addition to the community at large. So as I mentioned, we did hold some stakeholder focus groups last week, and many of these organizations were represented. We'll be doing additional targeted outreach to specific demographic groups, for example, youth. Darcy will talk a little bit more about this. But this is just to give you an idea of some of the folks that we've already identified, and again, continue taking a look at who in the community, which really at the end of the day is everyone, is going to be interested in this. So finally, just some of the next steps, immediate next steps, is we'll have our TAC kickoff meeting next week with staff. We're going to be visiting with the neighborhood group leaders next week to conduct some additional outreach with them. We will have a booth at Unity in the Community, which is the chamber event at the end of the month. We'll be working on launching a project website, and we'll certainly make sure that all of you have links to that. And then we'll also plan on having a coordinating kickoff meeting next month. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Darcy, who's going to cover a few things, and then obviously we'll be interested in your discussion. I guess I can stop and ask if there's any process questions or any questions of any of the information I covered before I turn it over to Darcy. Okay, great.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Planning and Zoning Commission members. Again, my name is Darcy White with Clary & Associates. We're very excited to be here kicking off the plan process, and I wanted to just take a moment to introduce the other team members that are here tonight. Because this is an integrated process, there are a lot of different moving parts to it, and so we've got some team members with strategic expertise. Matt Prosser with Economic and Planning Systems is here in the audience. EPS will be focusing on economic and housing issues specifically as part of this work. And Felsberg, Holton, Ullevig is our transportation firm. Elliot Sulsky is here. They have worked with Longmont previously in the recent past, so he's got a great working knowledge of the community and some of the transportation issues. His firm will be focused on multimodal issues as part of this process. So we'll be working closely with them throughout. Elliot will be kind of the Darcy to I'm not going to say that right. He's going to be serving in my role on the transportation end of things. And then 2 other firms want to introduce who aren't here this evening. Urban Interactive Studio is a group that focuses on online engagement tools. Community engagement is a huge part of this process, as Aaron mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the tools that we'll be using for that. But Urban Interactive Studio brings some really unique creative ideas to the table, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. And then last but not least, Bohannon Houston is an engineering firm that has also worked with the city recently on on some of the flood recovery work efforts. And so they will be playing a strategic role in this process, helping us with some resiliency considerations as we get into both evaluation of different opportunities in the community related to infrastructure, as well as looking at the plan overall in terms of policy development and helping us look at it through that lens. So the other person I didn't mention tonight is Ben Herman from Clarion Associates. He's behind me here, and Ben has worked with the community on the previous plan update and is very familiar with the community as well. So he will be working as a strategic advisor with me on this project, and we're excited to be here. So with that, I will jump into a couple of things on community outreach. As Aaron mentioned, we did some initial meetings last week. We met with about 50 different stakeholders in the community, just really scratching the surface. We did a series of focus groups, spent a whole day talking with people, and it was a really informative process, and I'll share some of that input here momentarily. But I think a couple things I'll mention in terms of our overall approach. Aaron mentioned the stakeholder list. One of the things that's clear in Longmont is that there are a lot of really great groups in the community to build on, and I think in our experience working on plans like this, tapping into those existing groups as we go through this process is going to be a key part of not just reaching a broad segment of the community, but also helping us just build awareness and get those numbers up in terms of folks that we're meeting with. So opportunities like the neighborhood group leaders meeting where we can, have 40 or so people come together, talk about specific issues, unity in the community, 500 people. So we'll be spending time, particularly over the next couple months, just building awareness about the process with those different groups, but then we'll be circling back later in the process and doing some broader community meetings as well. Excuse me. Aaron also mentioned that we certainly want to reach out to the youth in the community. There's a couple different opportunities we're looking at there, both with the youth council that's already been established. I think we saw some examples this evening of how we've got some great ideas in the community from the younger folks, and that's something we'll want to tap into. The other thing I'll mention here is that we also will be attending as many events as we can, whether it's just handing out information about the project or trying to solicit some targeted input as we get into the process. In terms of the online engagement opportunities, a couple things I'll mention. We will have a dedicated project website, and that will serve not just as an information kind of clearinghouse for the project, but we will also be hosting essentially online meetings every time we do a community outreach series. So Aaron mentioned the 5 phases in the process, and the bulk of our community outreach will happen during phases 2 through 4. So we'll do 4 different rounds of outreach during each of those phases. And each time we do a round of in-person meetings, we'll do the same thing online. So we're able to track, basically be asking the same questions of a large amount of people. So we find that having those varied opportunities is really productive in terms of just getting more people at the table. The other thing that we'll have available using the online tools as a platform are a couple of mobile kiosks that we'll be able to place in different activity hubs in the community, whether it's the library or the Y, places where people have time, they're hanging out, might be able to respond to a few questions. So we'll test that out and see if we can find a couple locations that work and might move them around during the process. So we'll be coming at this from a variety of different ways. All of the tools that Urban Interactive Studio develops are all mobile friendly. So, a lot of times people maybe they're sitting in this room working on their phone right now, so can be filling out a survey while they're doing other stuff. So we'll try to come at this from a lot of different angles. Any questions about the community outreach process before we dive into kind of what we've heard so far?
Councilmember Levison?
Yes, I'm wondering what online meetings look like. I had a conversation recently with some of the under 40 crowd, which obviously I am not part of any longer. And I said, well, and these were people that with young children. I said, well, would you come to a meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening? They're like, no way. And so are they going to be interactive in the way like a Google Hangouts? Would it be kind of facilitated? And what will it actually look like, and can people do it in 15 minutes or an hour? What are they looking at as time commitment?
Sure. A couple different things that will happen. First, the project website will have a forum. So if someone wants to get in and casually bring up issues and start a discussion with others in the community, that will be available throughout the process. And that will be something that's a little more informal. We'll monitor it, but a little more driven by the community. And that at each of those stages in the process, we will tailor the online tools to what we're trying to accomplish. So at the visioning stage, we'll be asking different questions, of course. We'll be vetting some of the information in the existing plan, but it will be presented in an interactive way, in a user-friendly way, where it's more of a, did you know this? What do you think about this? And so it will be an interactive format in terms of a kind of a survey that you can walk through, and just basically kind of an open house that you could go through in your living room. And so as we get later into the process, we will probably get into some more complex questions, and so we'll have to provide a little bit more background, but we'll be able to try to keep those as simple as possible and as short as possible, so to make sure that they're accessible for people. One of the things that we do when we set those up is that, for example, if we're asking about land use opportunities, we give people the option to, respond to one particular area, but maybe they're not interested in the other. So you have the ability to skip around and kind of pick and choose the things that you want to comment on.
Is there going to be a gaming component? So could somebody basically take the comp plan and build SimCity Longmont?
We will not have that built into the website, no.
Well, are we going to create any kind of gaming component? That would engage the youth, I think.
That's not something we've talked about. So something sounds like we should talk about.
And then one other mechanism for outreach I know has been very successful. There's quite an interesting book that talks about in Kona, Hawaii, the last time they did their comp plan, I think it was in 06, 07, they used real-time interactive 3D visualization. It's outlined in a book actually by Lincoln Land Policy Institute that really talks about how you can marry technology to do that engagement piece. So are you going to utilize any real-time 3D engagement so people can really visualize and concretely understand choices when they're guiding those answers to questions?
When we get into the focus areas discussion, which I'll talk about some of those areas so far, we will be doing some visualization work as part of that. In terms of the real-time factor, that's not something that we had had come up in the conversation so far, but certainly we'll be giving people lots of different choices, and the visualization will play a key role in that. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. So next up, wanted to just touch on a couple of things that we've heard from the community so far. And as Aaron said, this is really just to give you a sense of kind of where we're headed, and we want to get your thoughts on it as well. Really some key themes that have emerged from those initial discussions. I think there were a lot of different ideas around the table, but one of the things that we heard is that there may not be a coherent vision for the community that everybody really gels about, but what they seem to agree on is that Longmont has a lot of unique features, and the role of this plan really should be to elevate those, to educate people about what you have that's unique, and to really embrace that as part of your vision going forward. A few different things have come up as part of that, ranging from community identity to diversity as something that the community really values and wants to see moving forward, ranging from people to groups, et cetera, but also your geographic position within the region. There was a lot of discussion about how do we leverage where we are. We're close to Denver, we're close to a lot of other places, and yet we're our own community. We're not a North Metro community that blends into lots of other communities. And so that was just an observation that several people noted in our meetings last week. Another major theme was connectivity, and what I mean by connectivity is not just transportation, which was a big part of that discussion, but also connections within the community. And so when we talk about access to services, for example, we talked with a lot of different service providers last week on topics ranging from housing to homelessness to different types of services within the community. And I think being able for the need for people to be able to get to those really relates back to the transportation discussion, but also where are those places located, different opportunities that might emerge from the discussion as part of that. In terms of multimodal transportation, I think the really kind of a few context there. Regionally, how well connected are you to other parts of the region? There's a lot of awareness and focus on the regional transit connections and what that should be, what it could be, but also connections within the community. And when we talk about that, it's not really just about transit, but an emphasis on pedestrian and bikes as well. So a few different things to think about there. I'll touch on the river connections here in a moment because that came up in several contexts. Another area we heard a lot of feedback was that the plan really needs to clearly identify what are those opportunities, and not just for new growth, but also for revitalization. And so I'll talk about some of the opportunity areas that came up in the conversation. But certainly housing was a big part of that discussion, and as I mentioned, that will be something we'll be focused on clearly as part of the process, and really building on the work of the Affordable Housing Task Force, where we recognize there's been a tremendous amount of work done on that topic and many other topics. So we're really looking to try to build on and help carry forward and implement some of those ideas. Employment was another opportunity area that really came up in the discussions, and I think a lot of these themes, I was looking back through the advanced Longmont work that was done last year, earlier today, and a lot of these themes really come up in that work as well. I think everybody seems to embrace the notion of Longmont as an entrepreneurial hub. They really see that as something that to build on and to make sure that when you do have folks starting up in the community, how do we keep them here, make sure we have places for them to go, that sort of thing. The river was a big part of discussion as well, both from the continued recovery standpoint, but also as an opportunity. I think while everyone acknowledged that the flood was a significant tragedy for the community, a lot of people reflected that this really is an opportunity for us now to look back and see how do we make the most of this amenity that we have in our community, whether it's from a connectivity standpoint, but even from a development standpoint. And as you know, the blueprint work that's going on right now is looking at some of those ideas, and that's something we can look at further in the comp plan process. Community gateways was another thing that came up. I think the one I'll mention, North Main and Highway 66. A lot of people in different groups brought up the notion that as people are coming past the community, that there really is nothing to draw them in and kind of convey what's unique about Longmont on the north end. And lastly, on opportunities, I think really more of an implementation comment, but that once the plan is complete, ensuring that the zoning regulations are aligned with it to make sure that, this is what we want to achieve and here's how we're going to get here. So make sure the process is fair and smooth moving forward. And this is my last slide here. We asked people to give us some input on potential focus areas. Where you are as a community, we're really not talking about a start from scratch land use map at this point. Most of the community is built out. There are some remaining greenfield opportunities, but we asked people to give us some advice about what are the focus areas we should be looking at, and looking at some of those alternatives that might be possible for the community. So these were just some initial ideas that we'd like to get your take on. Certainly a lot of discussion about downtown and First and Main, and we know there's a lot of work already happening there. So that was more of a keep doing what we're doing and continue to make it better. A lot of discussion about North Main and opportunities there for revitalization. Highway 66 corridor I mentioned. The Sugar Beet Factory, Highway 119, again, that's something that's come up before, but, an opportunity for this process to look at. And the last two, they're different, but I think in some ways they go hand in hand. The Hover Road corridor came up in a couple different contexts, I think, both from the standpoint of are there opportunities to provide kind of neighborhood services to residents in that part of the community, but also from the standpoint of looking at the fairgrounds as an opportunity, and how can we maximize this resource we have in the community working with the county. And then again, the river corridor. So those are really kind of the key areas that came out of the initial discussions. And I should emphasize that though we'll be focused on some
key areas within the map. There will be a number of targeted updates that need to be made throughout. We'll be making other changes, but a lot of the community discussion is intended to focus on wherever we land on these focus areas. So I'm going to stop there, but I think really our goal tonight is to get some input from you about the issues and opportunities you see for this process, any ideas you have on particular focus areas, and then wanting to make sure we're in line with your expectations for the process generally. So I will stop there.
Councilmember Christensen. One other area of gateway is the South Gateway on 287.
Okay.
And I suggest that we put a little love into South Main because, I think that's going to, we already have the bypass coming by the sugar beet factory, and that's extended the town a little bit, and we have Prospect out there, and it's a great gateway. It's beautiful if you come down 287, and I think it would be good to sort of include that as part of what we're looking for moving forward. Thank you.
Well, I think what's going to make this successful is the engagement of the community. I mean, this community is like none other that people in this community get engaged about just about any event, so they want to be heard, and as long as we give them an opportunity during multiple steps of this, I think this will be a successful process. Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. The other way I think we could look into tapping into maybe not the usual suspects is to explore meetup. There's maybe 50 meetup groups within Longmont. And either, we should reach out, maybe we could form our own meetup group on the comp plan. And, it could be citizen-led, just like what you're talking about, an online forum, but it could be, people that might want to just share information, a meeting they might have gone to, and they might want to share information with somebody who didn't go to the meeting, have a discussion. But, and I'm not thinking that it would take a lot of staff to facilitate it. Just maybe have that updated information available that if people wanted to discuss where we are and then give a very clear method that they can communicate, that would be excellent. And then one other area of focus, I think we need to really communicate things in lay language. And I know that in Erin's discussion points, she talked about areas of change and areas of stability. I know it's those terms were used when Denver was doing some comprehensive plan work several years ago. I think that that using those kind of plain language touchstones will give people an indication of whether or not they're living in an area that is going to be subject to change. But I think everybody knows at some point in time, everything is subject to change. But I'd also like to make sure that we engage in looking at all the yellow on the map on either side of Maine that were residential neighborhoods. The character of each of those residential neighborhoods is so different from those, brick ranch houses, west of Main Street and north of 9th Avenue, intermixed with some newer housing. So there's the 1950s and 60s stuff. There's the old town. There's areas of town that are, the lots are much different configured. The streets are not, a linear grid by any means. So I think we need to look at whether or not the comp plan not only addresses infill, but how neighborhoods that are already established are subject to change in the future. Because this is, we don't have much space left. And a lot of what we're going to have to deal with is the intersection of an empty lot that everybody's been looking at, and sometimes kids have played a pickup game of ball and wondering what that's going to be. And when something does come to be there, how does that happen where everybody in the community is happy with it?
Councilmember Christensen.
I forgot. I was going to say earlier when Erin was talking. I'm sure you've got lots more stakeholders because basically everybody's a stakeholder. But
I think it's important to really engage the various forms of education from preschool all the way up. And Front Range Community College is such an incredible resource for us, and we really need to keep encouraging them and helping them any way we can to stay and expand. But also, of course, early childhood education all the way up. And so, thank you.
Councilmember Bingley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I just want to reiterate that we should integrate the recently completed Parks Master Plan and the Airport Master Plan, and because they were so recently done, that I think that there's a lot of valuable information in there that we can use for this plan as well. And I also want to make sure that we aren't going to look past where we might put some affordable housing, because that's such a great need in our community, and there's no place to put it now. There's no zoned places where somebody can build affordable housing, and we need to get that worked out.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, I think you've hit on a lot of important topics for the city as a whole, and everything from housing to land use. We're going to need to focus, I think, on infill and redevelopment is a big part of our plan. I'd like to also know a little bit more about how you integrate the multimodal transportation plan with a comp plan.
Sure. I'll start, and if Elliot wants to jump in, he can. But I think Elliot and I have worked together in this capacity before. I think there's a couple different levels. As we go through the evaluation of alternatives, for example, in these focus areas, we'll be looking at economic issues, transportation issues. How do those proposed changes in the land use affect transportation at that point? So when we bring choices back to the community, we're able to say, here are the implications of this potential decision. Based on that, what do you think? So that's kind of one thing. So throughout the process, we'll be looking at those things on a parallel track. In terms of the plan itself, there are a couple different ways to do that, and we haven't nailed down the preferred approach yet, but I think our initial thinking is that there will be a more robust policy section on transportation and connectivity in the plan itself. There may need to be some technical appendices for some of the more detailed transportation information, because one of the goals, I think we've heard for this plan is really trying to make it more user-friendly, more accessible to a lot of different people. And so we'll try to keep it concise and in terms of the information. So we'll be looking at both integration in the process as well as in the document itself. Did that answer your question, or?
Well, yeah, I get it. Let's do it.
Okay.
It'll
evolve. Okay.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, not only, as Councilmember Finley said, integrating all the master plans from all the various boards and commissions, all the boards, we also have the river plan and the blueprint, which Councilmember Christensen and I were here last night with TAB, Transportation Advisory Board, Parks and Rec, and the Board of Environmental Affairs. We got that preview last night. So what I'm hoping to get out of this as well is that if there are master plans that are conflicting, that conflict with the comp plan, that they need to be updated and changed, as well as any ordinances that we have on the books. It's going to be, no one's looking, as I've told folks before, it's either, councils really don't, regardless of who's on council, the boat doesn't move very far left and it doesn't move very far right. So, everyone likes to have it go straight on forward. And that's what this plan, I see in all the stakeholders, and you're right, Councilmember Christensen, the residents as well, be able to try to identify. Not everyone's going to be happy with this. In the end, the comp plan, not everyone's going to agree. There's going to be things people like and dislike. But it's looking at the future, the next 20 years. If we get a good 20 years out of it, it's probably better to update every 10. But if you can at least plan for 20, you can at least have a good idea of where you're going. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. You might have a couple of commission members that have questions.
Commissioner Janelle
Flake.
Flake.
Thank you. My question is concerning businesses, particularly the smaller businesses. And we have a lot of them along Main Street and elsewhere in little nodes of businesses around the city. My concern is how will you involve them in the process and in being able to have some kind of input in there, but not only that, how will we work at promoting those businesses as well as new businesses coming in? That would be my area of concern.
I think that's a great point, Commissioner Flagg, and that that is something, as Darcy mentioned, that we did hear in several of our focus groups. So we definitely plan to engage organizations that work with small businesses through our economic partners group. So we will plan on working closely with the Longmont Area Economic Council on both primary employment, and that can be large or small, as well as kind of the smaller retail and service businesses. You know, I think there's also an opportunity to engage the businesses directly as stakeholders, which you know, we hope to be able to do that through the myriad of ways that kind of Darcy mentioned. We'll be engaging the public, and then I think as we look at some of those focus areas and opportunity areas, there'll be additional considerations for, you know, from a land use perspective, what is good for business, what does that mix look like, areas that are changing, how could that change support specific types of businesses. So I think as we move through, that will be one of our considerations, and we'll definitely be, you know, trying to involve businesses of all sizes in the community.
Commissioner Sharp.
Darcy, just a couple ideas. One thing to look at would be a lot of comments have already been about what's placed where and what's the physical reality and what do we want the future physical reality to be. But one way to determine that is through the processes that occur in the cities. So to my mind, for example, we have these large piles of lime sitting over there by the sugar mill. Well, that was because of a process that the sugar mill was using in its production. But it's affected our land use because you now have these lime heaps. So we could look at processes that occur in our city. That also leads us to question what are the initial conditions we want in the undeveloped land, because that will greatly affect the 20-year time frame. And then in terms of resilience, I think it's important for us to the flood is on our mind. So when we talk about resilience, we usually think about the flood. But there are other types of resilience for our city. Some of the people you've already talked about access to food. You know, what's our relationship to the CSAs that generally exist outside of our city boundaries? I just saw recently in the paper something about some consideration of a solar garden. You know, that's another type of resilience. So I think we need to remember to be broad-minded about that concept. Thanks.
One thing I would note, too, in terms of the process, the land use questions, one of the key things we'll need to do as part of this is really look at the overall land capacity in the city. You know, what is our supply in terms of what we're projecting, and how do we balance, you know, and use that as part of the decision-making process. So that's something we'll be looking at from a housing standpoint as well as employment. So,
Commissioner Poland.
Aaron, last year there was a presentation on the demographics, the changing demographics. Is that going to be made available for the public to also see what the projections are going forward? Because I know from me going forward, that's helpful to kind of determine what we want to do with the land, as you said, with the 20-year plan, using that demographic. And there were some startling things that came out, especially with the aging population. I'm wondering, can that somehow be made public?
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, and we can absolutely make that data and that presentation available, and, you know, I'm willing to provide that to any group that wants it. The other piece, I don't know that I mentioned, but we will be doing a community profile as part of, I think, phase 2 of this project, and so that will really kind of capture the existing conditions, and certainly we can talk about what those future conditions are going to look like in, as Councilmember Santos said, you know, 20 years that this plan is planning for, so I think that's a great suggestion.
Commissioner Dunn. Thank you, Mayor Combs. I noted in our communication was that a detailed public involvement plan is currently being prepared, and it was probably in your comments, Aaron. When is that going to be is that going to be presented to us, and then will we have input on that, or how does that, when does that happen, I guess, in the process? Because, I mean, actually because I've heard a number of comments, and I know it's important to me is, I think the public involvement, how that's done and who is involved is one of the most critical, because if that goes on the wrong track, then everything sort of comes out of that. And it's always the thing that's a struggle for me is trying to figure out ways to get, I mean, I don't want to say, somebody used the term the usual suspects, but no, that's not really fair, but I mean, trying to get as many different people and people that all have been involved in the past, and people, I thought to Councilmember Christensen's point, I thought was terrific. I mean, talk about stakeholders. There's probably 90,000 stakeholders in this city, and how do we tap into that? So I'm just curious of the process of how that will evolve.
Sure. The public involvement plan is something we're working on now. We're actually going to be taking that to our TAC next week for kind of an initial look and get their feedback. And then when we have the coordinating committee meeting, we will bring it to that group as part of that initial meeting just to let them kind of weigh in on it as well. But I'm sure there are other opportunities, Aaron, if you want to. I'm not sure if there's a more formal mechanism for that, but that's at least our current strategy on that.
And I think certainly we could share that with you. You know, I think it's good that we're on the same page, that you all apparently think this is probably one of the most important things as far as this process goes. I think that's what we're thinking as well. So I would say certainly as there's ideas either from the commissioners or from council about, you know, Councilmember Levison offered some ideas tonight. If there are specific ideas or general questions that might spur us thinking, I think even though we're going to have this public involvement plan, it's not once we finish it, that's it, and we can't adapt our strategy. So I fully expect that we'll have a plan, and then the next day we'll change that based on, you know, something that we figured out that's, you know, an Earth Day fair or whatever that's going to happen. So, you know, please let us know if you have ideas. I think we can certainly share that document with you if it's something that you'd like to see. But we did envision that obviously going to the TAC and to that coordinating committee for kind of more formal input, of which there will be members of both of these groups on that.
And I think Aaron stole my thought there. I think it's very much a working document, but basically right now we're just trying to frame out as specifically as we can. In phase one, we're going to do this. Here are the different venues, or you know, whether it's social media or online. What are the initial meetings we think we're going to do? And as she said, it is going to be evolving, but at least it'll give you a sense of where we're headed, and you know, we can see if there are gaps and continue to massage that as we go. So.
Councilmember Goldberg.
Wow, you've been upgraded.
Sorry.
Everyone vote on that? I was happy to serve. Wow. Hi, Darcy. Thanks for being here tonight. So while we're all hot on the discussion of community engagement, just today I learned that on average we look at our phones 150 times per day, from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to bed. I wonder if when you're looking to get the engagement, I'm sure it's great for people to go to websites and answer essays and go to meetings and maybe even go to a brewery or something and listen to a speech or a presentation. But I wonder if there's anything that you can do to really encourage your mobile activity for that, your mobile component to it. Super short surveys, yes, nos, you know, rank favorite to least favorite, I think get really solid results in conversions and activations, whereas maybe if you need me to write an essay, that might turn out, that might be a less vibrant or rich turnout. And that might help hit some of the folks that we're trying to get, that Councilmember Levison has mentioned. I don't know if on the topic of stakeholders, things that really maintain our community culture are important. Things like special events. We have a number of rides and bikes and triathlons and all things that need to come through town, around town, and be able to get through town easily. Some of them have been real easy in town, and others have been harder to get
routed? Is that something that maybe we should consider along the way? And then finally, echoing Commissioner Poland's concern about the demographic and the aging of our town. Are we all on the same page? Is this a 20-year scope? Is that the goal?
It's usually a 10 to 15, 20 years.
Is that how are we just comfortable setting on 10 to 20 years? Because for me, that's quite a big range. If we learn that, I'll stop there for a second.
I was just going to say, the horizon of the plan is 20 years, but as the mayor noted, typically communities will revisit the plan,
Every 10 years.
Every 10 years for a major kind of check-in, sometimes more than that, depending on how much change you've seen. But the horizon of the plan is 20 years, so we will be looking out that far for sure.
Great. Yeah, I think that plays a big role as we understand that what the age of our town will be then. Yeah.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Commissioner Goldberg got very red there for a minute.
Not as red as I did.
For his promotion. Getting to the point of Councilmember Levison regarding dissemination of information. On your one of your slides, it says website. Is it going to be a separate website, or is it going to be attached to the city's website?
It'll be a dedicated project website, but it will be linked front and center on the city's page, so it's easy to find.
One thought with that is, as Commissioner Goldberg said, we look at our phone quite a bit. I'm always looking at YouTube videos, whether it's the Planning and Zoning Commission or past council meetings. This would be also a great use of Channel 8. Also, we used to do this at council, and I'm kind of hoping we would do this again. But staff pre-record presentations, and then give a synopsis at the meeting. Just link it out there. And as soon as information is available, it needs to be up on the website with a big flashing sign on the city's go here and see where the comp plan update is at. As much information as we possibly can get out to residents so they understand exactly what's going on and where they can go if there's a specific topic that they would like to address. So that'd be very, very key.
Yeah, one quick note on the website. We will have, if you have a specific thing you want to talk to someone, you can email the team directly. The email will come right to us, and we can follow up with people if we need to. So.
Thank you.
Councilmember Levison.
Actually, let Josh jump in.
Commissioner Goldberg.
I'll take either one. Darcy, one of the most, I think, successful campaigns that I've seen in the city in the last about 18 months or so was this Office of Emergency Management Facebook post that came up during the flood. Anyone else follow that? That's exactly where I found all of the information on a minute-by-minute kind of basis. And boy, everyone loves Facebook. I bet you have a Facebook account yourself. Oh, okay.
But we do use it heavily.
You do, yeah. And so certainly turning to our City of Longmont website, new and improved City of Longmont website is a great option, but reaching out to folks by way of Facebook seems to have really great strength.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things we're able to do with that is to reaching out to all the other groups that we've been kind of connecting with and asking them to follow us and get all those things going. So we'll be tapping into those networks as we go as well. So, but social media will be a big part of it.
Councilmember Larson.
I appreciated Commissioner Goldberg's comment about mobile. It would be extremely cool and immediate feedback if there could be, again, this could be like a gaming feature where people are driving around the city and we've already got, they could be driving around the city and they notice something and they get a ping or there's something that we've discussed an area of the city in the comp plan, and they can stop, they can take a picture of something, and then say, I'm right here now in the environment. And then something can come up and prompt them to say, which choice that was discussed would you think fits best here? And then they can, choose from a selection or none of the above. But again, that's that kind of idea of real-time citizen sim city where people are in the environment and they can respond to how it feels instead of looking two-dimensionally on a map, which is extremely hard to do. So, You could be driving by an empty lot and stop and say, okay, here's the picture of this. Or you're on a scavenger hunt to find empty lots that you think would be good places for mixed use or housing, and you could put up what you think would look good in that environment, some kind of structure, or what you think the ideas would be for that to be integrated as a piece of infill. But to try to get it back and forth, because again, we're all kind of geeky stuff, doing government and planning and all this, but the average person out there, first of all, why should they care to come? And the motivation saying you want to make your community a better place. Well, everybody wants to make their community a better place, but what would be their motivation to show up for 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 or 6 in a 1 month period? We have to market and brand this, so it's like, you have to do this. We have to find a way where people have to do it for some kind of motivation we need to find to get them there to engage. And, bottom line, otherwise we get the usual suspects, which is not a bad thing, but we need to hear from other people because we're not doing this plan for us. We're doing it for Josh's kids and for Gabe's kids and my kids, and then people, adults and others that are going to come here, be drawn to what we create in that comprehensive plan as the overall community vision for what our town is, that also talks about our values as a community, both historically and what we see in the future. And that's the big picture of the comp plan.
Councilmember Christensen.
I think I'm totally in support of Councilman Santos's suggestions. I think they're excellent, and as far as involving Channel 8 and involving other things, and also Councilwoman Levinson's. But because I'm old and I'm pretty fast on the computer, but I am pretty low tech basically, and there are a lot of people in town who don't have homes, much less phones. So, we still got postcards, and I would suggest one way we could get small businesses involved is to have, we have a very good design office here, and we could have one identity that marks this as something, and it should carry over into, that's because I'm branding, but carries over into the websites and everything, so people recognize when they see this, it has to do with a comprehensive plan. And this is their chance to interact. So whether it's a postcard or a mobile app or whatever, it is the same visual identity, and people know that that's their chance to interact. We could have a booth at the farmers market once in a while and have city council take turns sitting there, for like 2 hours on Saturday. You don't have to sit there all day, but just, a couple of hours. We could have a booth at the Earth Day. We could have small businesses, if they want to, have a little area where they can see how they can interact on Facebook, on Twitter, on the website, on whatever, or they can have postcards they can send in. I think most of us realize Chief Butler and former Councilman Dan Benavides are walking around. And when they talk to people, they could also give them a postcard saying, if you think of something later that you would like to see different, send it in. And I think that involving people who are just walking around would be a good idea, too, in a low-tech way. Thank you.
That's a great suggestion.
Well, obviously, we're not going to solve all the issues tonight, as much as we'd like to. I appreciate all the good work you've done, and I agree with everybody's input, and we'll just have to see where this takes us.
We appreciate the time very much, and we look forward to working with all of you. So.
And I hope I get a chance to be personally a part of this, working on the board with you. Commissioner Shernick.
Councilmember Levinson's comments just made me think of something that the power of drawings in section and plan is quite strong. And I've been reading a book recently called Reclaiming the American West by Alan Berger, who's a professor at Harvard Design School. He's a landscape architect. And he has a whole section about the difference between cartographies and mappings and how it affects our view of the land and the landscape. And so it might be good, not for the public to have to go through this kind of theoretical material, but for your team to kind of revisit back to your grad school days, like, gee, what are we doing with section and plans? And is there another way that we can engage people? I think that's what Councilmember Levison is getting at, is can we work in 3D? Can we work with extruded models, something other than just the power of the plan?
Councilmember Levison?
I'm sorry. Aaron wants to.
Okay.
One of the other components that I didn't speak about before, but is actually really critical, is that we're going to be addressing some issues of density. And there is an absolute excellent book, which, I read several years ago, and the planning department has, again, from Lincoln Land Policy Institute, called Visualizing Density. And Julie Campoli actually has been to the Rocky Mountain Land Institute the last couple of years presenting. And about a quarter of that book is Longmont. And it goes through exactly what Mr. Chernak was talking about, what density looks like in, on the street level and in a plan, and then, aerial photographs, and showing how things could actually be quite dense when we're talking about maybe looking at affordable housing as having some density bonuses, such as are applied in other cities, that things could be much more dense, but if you do it the right way, it doesn't feel as dense. And I think that that's another component as we move forward with growth in the city, that we have maybe an unexpected opportunity for population growth. If we handle it correctly, it will not make Longmont feel different than what everyone loves, the character of open space and not feeling like people are on top of one another. So density is another, if you do density right, it can be quite effective. And that's a good way to explore, how do we address infill with getting the most out of what we have for properties left undeveloped.
Okay, I guess we're done asking questions.
Can I just interject one quick thing? I know you have a lot of other agenda topics, so we really appreciate this time. Just so council is aware, as I mentioned, we're going to be convening this coordinating committee. I think I heard the mayor say that he'd like to be involved. I don't know if that was you trying to appoint yourself to that, which is great. Yeah. We'd love to have you. We will be asking Planning Commission at their meeting next month, and I know we talked about that at some point in the relatively recent past. But that may be something, certainly we'll give you time to mull that over, but certainly also if you're willing to make that appointment and want to do that tonight, I think that we're happy to have that as well. So not to put anyone on the spot, but please know that that's something we'll be requesting sooner rather than later.
Well, I guess I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'd like to be on that board and help out. I've got a lot of time, and Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Since Councilmember Bagley's not here, it's probably a good idea to have that discussion. I'm glad that you've thrown your hat in the ring. I'd be interested too, but I'd be interested in, apparently, Councilmember Christensen. You're going to have a lot of us, potentially, but it might be better if we have that conversation with all 7 members present.
And that's fair. So certainly, I'll work with Harold to figure out what makes sense and get that from you in the future. And certainly if you need more information, also know that if you're not the person that's on that committee, it doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. And it certainly doesn't mean that you won't be involved. But I'll work with Harold on that in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you, planning commissioners, as well.
Councilmember Robinson?
I think Councilmember Santos brings up a good point that really the council needs to act as ambassadors. So we all need to be fully engaged in this. And I think you've seen everybody wanting to be fully engaged, but we also come to the table with different strengths and weaknesses. And I think that it's relevant when people have certain skill sets that might be better used in grassroots or grass tops to look at those various stakeholder groups and see where the best connection can be made in the process. And especially with council members hearing from different aspects of the community, that would be just helpful for all of us to support the work of both the Planning and Zoning Commission, the consultants, and city staff.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction to all the good work that's going to happen. Let's take a 10-minute break. resume our meeting, please?
I'm ready, Mayor.
Yes.
We can do it.
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
Mayor Coombs, are you ready for your next item? Are you ready for your next item?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, your next item is second reading and public hearings. The first one of those is ordinance 2015-11, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2015. We do not have a formal staff presentation on this. Teresa Malloy is present to address questions.
Okay, don't see any questions from council, so I'll open a public hearing on this. Anybody from the public like to speak with ordinance 2015-11? I guess seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move ordinance 2015-11.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent.
The next item is ordinance 2015-12, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of all rights-of-way and easements dedicated on the homestead at Harvest Junction, final plat recorded in Boulder County at reception number 2897398, generally located south of State Highway 119 and east of Main Street. Again, we have no formal staff presentation. Don Burchett is here to answer questions.
Any questions for Al before I open it up? Okay, I'll open up the public hearing for ordinance 2015-12. Anybody from the public like to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing on 2015-12. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I would move passage of ordinance 2015-12.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent.
Your next item is ordinance 2015-13, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of two 30-foot wide easements adjacent to Sedgwick Court in the Somerset Meadows subdivision, generally located east of Sedgwick Court and south of Heather Hill Circle. And I believe Ava is here to address questions but does not have a formal staff presentation.
Okay, I'll open up the public hearing on ordinance 2015-13. Anybody from the public like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on 2015-13. Councilmember Levison.
Mayor, I'd like to move ordinance 2015-13 for adoption.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Santos. Let's vote. Okay, that passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent.
The next item is ordinance 2015-14. It's a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the following parcels of real property at the Vanscram Municipal Airport. Hangar H28B to Diamond G Concrete Company, H28C to Jerry C. Dust, H28D to Greg Stewart, H31C to Richard Hall, H31A to Robert Yerbach, H28E to David Friege, H31B to Carl Harris, H28F to Art Ancharico, H6, H7, H8, H9, and H10 to Robert Sarche and Ronald Vogel, and H58 to Doug Lowell, and H32C to David Schenk. Again, there is no formal staff presentation. John Lewis is here to address questions.
Councilmember Christensen.
I'm curious about the concrete company and why they are getting a lease at the airport.
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Christensen, if I can have a few minutes to find the answer to that. I don't immediately know the answer.
Oh, okay.
I know we do have a number of tenants at the airport, and so some of them have doing business as They're not necessarily, so the name that's on the lease is not necessarily what their business is at the airport. Does that make sense? So they may own a plane, like for instance, Dale with Oscar Blues has a plane at the airport, but the name on the lease is something different. So if I can search for that doing business registered name. And
That's okay. I'm just wondering if any of these are businesses that are really not. I'm sure you've already looked through these and they are aviation affiliated and all that. But how many total leases are there at the airport, just out of curiosity?
I think there are approximately 300 plus aircraft that are housed at the airport.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
So I think to answer your question, a lot of these companies may or may not have planes, and so that's really what they're using it for. But in terms of aviation-related uses at the airport, that falls into the rules and regulations in terms of how that governs that piece of it. So that's going to be the piece in the rules and regs that we bring forward.
Okay, I'll open up the public hearing on ordinance 2015-14. Anybody from the public like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on ordinance 2015-14. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move ordinance 2015-14.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent.
Mayor Coombs, thanks to the quick work of our legal counsel, he did find the registration with the Secretary of State, and so it is the Golden family. And I know that they do have an aircraft, but it was a registration of that name, that business name, from 1963. But I do know that their family does have an aircraft at the airport, and I think it's for this hangar.
Mayor Coombs, your next item is the consent agenda. Item 9A is ordinance 2015-15, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2015. The public hearing and second reading of this ordinance is scheduled for February 24th. Item 9B is ordinance 2015-16, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H5 to James Daniel McKinstry. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for February 24th. Item 9C is Resolution 2015-08, approving an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the City and Colorado Department of Transportation for grant funding for improvements to Highway 119 from South Emory Street to South Pratt Parkway. Item 9D is accept grant in the amount of $25,000 from the Daniels Fund for the Longmont Expansion Cohort. Item 9E is Resolution 2015-09, to refer potential disposition of open space to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And staff does not have a need to take anything off of consent.
Councilmember Levison.
I'd like to remove 9D just for comment, please. And otherwise, I move the consent agenda minus item D.
All right, that's been moved and seconded, so let's vote on the consent agenda minus D. Okay, that passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent.
And that would be the grant from the Daniels Fund.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to highlight and thank the work of our staff members. Christina Pacheco, I think, was in the audience, and just if you want to come down and explain a little bit how this ties into some other work. I also want to note that significantly the Daniels Fund is a statewide foundation, and it is extremely difficult to break into this level of state funding. And Christina, would you please highlight what the work is and how this builds on some other work the city is doing?
Am I on? Good evening, Christina Pacheco, Division Manager, Children, Youth, and Families. Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Levison, you're right. This grant to break into the Daniels Foundation for funding is very difficult. I think they've recognized the work of our community, the leadership that our community, our city government has taken in terms of being a convener on early education and making sure our youngest community members are ready when they go to kindergarten. And so specifically what this is about is really having a platform where we can look at preschoolers across the board and be able to measure apples to apples. So there are some preschools in our community that are able to use the TS Gold assessment tool. There are other preschools and early education programs that don't have the resources to do that. And so when these young people go to school, the data that we have is not balanced, if you will. And so really what this does is this gives us the ability to, with this funding, work, I believe, with 3 to 5 programs in our community that don't have those resources. And so what that will allow us to do long term is really track that data and look at what some of the interventions that we're doing at a community level through our education system, if they're really working. And so I think this is great for us, for our community, and we're able to then really talk about that return on investment for the funds that we put into early education.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think that, I'm aware of this. I don't know how many other of the council members are aware that how critical it is that when trained professionals, teachers are working at the preschool level, that getting training on what to notice and how to assess children to see if they're making progress, and then to engage parents, which is another component of a professional's work with a young child, to see what they can do at home as first teachers, really, of their children, that it can really jumpstart a family on the path of their child being educated, and then further engaging with the school when their child enters school. The other thing I want to point out is the TS Gold is the umbrella that the school district currently is using for their preschool programs, and so this helps expand the number of people and the amount of work that the city can do to facilitate other child care providers to understand this assessment tool. The other important component here in the grant is this issue of expulsion from preschool. Unlike K through 12, if you're expelled from preschool, you can't necessarily get back in. They don't have to take you. And it's also an indicator of potential issues with the child. If they're expelled from preschool and they don't have access to get back in, that puts them further behind and isolates them, where those issues they have that cause the expulsion really need to be addressed. Otherwise, they're going to eat up a lot of time when they get to kindergarten. So this will also help solve some early problems, and perhaps, those individuals would not be expelled, and therefore they won't be a public safety risk, perhaps, and when they grow up to be adults or young men in our community. So I just want to, again, commend you, and also the work of Linda Kopecki and the effort that the city staff has put in to address the youngest members of our community. Thank you. And so I guess I'll move. Well, I guess go ahead.
Councilmember Christensen.
I'm really happy that we've got this grant, because early childhood education is very important, and having been through trying to find daycare again and again and again, it's very hard, and it's especially hard for kids who don't, for families who don't have very much money, and it's any help we can give to the people who do the preschool programs is really helpful, especially building some kind of consistent way of evaluating. What I wanted to ask you is about the preschool expulsion. I know 4-year-olds are difficult to deal with, but gee, how can you be expelled from preschool?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Christensen, yes, that is a reality. And as Councilmember Levison mentioned, it really is about early intervention. And
Yeah.
so when a preschooler is expelled from a preschool, that really speaks to maybe some support that parents need.
Yes.
And so I think through this process, through this training that will go to preschool educators, I think it will help identify those issues early on and open that door for intervention so that there aren't issues in the future or to help curb those issues. But I think it really speaks to bigger issues within the family system when something like that happens.
So this will help perhaps to address issues helping parents, especially first-time parents are, we have no idea what we're doing, so make a lot of mistakes. But also some kids actually do have some serious problems, and if you can get them kind of some help early on, it will help a lot of things later on, because otherwise they are just going to be tearing up the school system, and it's bad for them and everybody else.
Yes, it will help the preschool teachers learn to be able to identify those things earlier on and intervene at earlier stages so there won't be those issues going into the school system.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept this grant from the Daniels Fund with great appreciation for the work of staff, $25,000.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent.
Mayor Coombs, your final item tonight is general business amendment to the Longmont City Council Rules of Procedure, modifying Rule 25.5 regarding calling executive sessions, and Rule 27 regarding board and commission qualifications. Eugene May has a short presentation.
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. In conjunction with the City Clerk's Office, I'm here tonight to recommend 2 amendments to the Council Rules of Procedure, which we believe will contribute to the effective, efficient operations of City Council and the boards and commissions. The first one that staff is recommending is for Council to be notified of executive sessions by email rather than the current practice of hand delivery to Council members' personal residences. As we heard from Commissioner Josh Goldberg. People are checking their council member, yes. People are checking their devices too many times per day, and we think email is a much more effective method of notification. Certainly, the prevailing standard these days with staff and council alike, I think, is checking email. And so not only do we believe it will be a more effective method of notice, it will also have the added benefit of reducing administrative costs and delivering notices of executive sessions to council members' personal residences. This is primarily an internal change. I think nothing is really going to change for the public. Regular sessions will still be held at 7 o'clock. The council rules of procedures are proposed to be amended to authorize the city manager to call executive sessions, pre-sessions, and other meetings with governmental entities in that time slot from 5:30 to 7. I think that really just codifies existing practice on how those meetings are called. The second change that staff is recommending is to codify in the rules, again, the city's historical practice of requiring board and commission candidates to be both a city resident and registered to vote in the city for at least 1 year immediately prior to their appointment. Talking to the city clerk's office, this has been their interpretation for a number of years. We believe it's city council's interpretation also. I think this will clarify the expectations for the community and those applicants to the board and commissions. And it was a pretty simple change for the rules of procedure, again, simply codifying city's historical practice. I did want to mention one other small sort of housekeeping item that I changed in the rules of procedure. This is in Rule 25B, adding the city manager to those officials that can cancel a study session. Currently, the rules of procedure only authorize the mayor. Talking with internal staff, clearly the city manager is very close to the development of agendas, knows when the agenda looks light or a meeting could be potentially canceled, and so not to take away from the power of the mayor, but cutting out the middleman and allowing the city manager the authority to cancel those study sessions. So in terms of procedure, the rules of procedure require the introduction of proposed amendments at a regular session. If council's direction is to move forward, we'll bring this back February 24th for formal action. So I'm here, Valerie's here to take any questions you may have.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you. I do think it's a wise and cost-effective and sensible thing to stop having to drive around and tuck notices in everybody's door, you know, in all kinds of weather. I just wanted to clarify one item about the boards and commission candidates. Is that for all boards and commissions? Because currently that's only a requirement for some boards.
It would be a requirement for all boards
For
and
all
commissions.
boards. Okay.
Councilmember.
Councilmember Finley.
Finley. Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I did, DDA does not have that requirement,
Well,
right? If I could address that?
Sure.
DDA is not a city board. It is it's a board that is appointed, part of the members are appointed by council. It is, gets the authority through state statute. It doesn't get its authority from city council.
And Visit Longmont?
Visit Longmont is a separate nonprofit board, a separate entity, so it is not the same kind of board that we're talking about. You appoint some of those members, but not all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. So it would just be the board, our boards and commissions that we have established as a city and city council.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Santos.
I move option 1, direct staff to bring back an item on the February 24th, 2015 City Council regular session for formal action.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. That passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley absent. Okay, now it's time for final call. Public invited to be heard. Is anybody from the public like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, I'll close final call. Public invited to be heard. So now it's time for mayor and council comments. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to my sister, Connie, who turned 66 today. My business of the week is the Girl Scouts. It's Girl Scout cookie time, and there are Girl Scouts near you who want to sell you some, and you should buy them because they're delicious. You can also buy Girl Scout cookies this year online. So if the Girl Scouts don't come to you, you can go to them. And that is my business of the week, Girl Scouts.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I guess anytime there's an airport issue, I have to jump in there and weigh in. Since this issue came up last week with the spreadsheet thing, my first reaction was to fire the chairman of the board. After looking into it further, and as more information came out, they said we should fire the whole board. They have not been forthright and they actually are modifying public records, and that's not a good thing. It doesn't weigh well with me, and I assume not with the city council, and not with the city as a whole. They have failed to bring annual reports to the city council. I had Assistant City Manager Lewis look into that. He got me several years worth. And from what I can tell, there's a couple years worth of numbers that have been modified. And these reports should be in the public record, and they should be relatively easy to find. According to ordinance, they are supposed to bring a annual report to council on an annual basis. And after going through all that spiel, I'm not sure it's really going to accomplish anything. I think we have their attention. I would expect that our new airport manager will have a different set of marching orders for them. And the city manager and Assistant City Manager Lewis, I appreciate your efforts in getting this forward. At one time, I was thinking we should just start over with a clean slate, but that's probably not going to accomplish the goals that we need to get this airport thing moving forward. So my comment is that they need to clean up their act. My comments in the paper were totally accurate. They're out of control. They haven't been doing their responsibilities. And when you start modifying public records and hiding the truth, that's unacceptable.
Councilmember Robinson.
Well, I'm going to follow that up with first a compliment to Councilmember Moore, not on that topic, but wanted to compliment him because he presented on a panel last week on Wednesday for National League of Cities on the work we're doing on addressing hunger in our community for children for the grant we got for the after school and summer meal program, and I was not able to be on the panel, and I just want to let everyone know that the report was he hit it out of the ballpark. So we need to put you on the Rockies, and they'll win. So I want to really thank you for stepping in for me, and really did a great job representing the city. I think it's really a hallmark that I hope we can cultivate further, that we can cross-pollinate and support each other in the various topic issues that some of us are working on, whether it be, Gabe focusing on transportation, and Polly at Consortium of Cities, and Gabe at Dr. Cog, and Bonnie with planning and zoning and other things that she's doing, and certainly technology with Jeff, that we could really be able to stand in for one another and know enough about what we're all doing in certain topic areas. But I just appreciate that. The other thing is we are coming up Thursday for the legislative workshop for Colorado Municipal League, and I know several of us are going to attend. And then or something else I was going to say, I can't remember. I guess I want to encourage people to sign up for Unity in the Community, and if you haven't signed up for the CML annual conference in June, it's about time to do it before all the hotel rooms disappear.
I jump in here, and I'd like to congratulate the Longmont basketball team that won really closely fought game 41-40. They played, I think it's Holy Family, that was the second-ranked team in the state. So now Longmont's boys basketball team is 19-0, and the girls actually upset top-ranked Holy Family's girls team too. So it was a good night for Longmont on Saturday. So I hope the community just realizes what a bunch of great athletes and scholars. A lot of them were scholar athletes. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, Mayor Coombs and I had coffee with council. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. Actually, it was a really good meeting. We talked about flood and housing, affordable housing, and other topics as well. Getting to the comments made by Councilmember Moore, to throw an entire board under the bus is probably not appropriate. I believe that Assistant City Manager Sean Lewis and the City Manager are looking into seeing what has occurred. You have new board members that are on this Airport Advisory Board, and for being the council liaison, I haven't seen very much impropriety as far as other board members or the out-of-control comment that was made in the paper. We all don't go to each other's boards. I know of one Councilmember Moore, who's attended one airport advisory board. To say that the board is out of control is probably inappropriate, and if there is impropriety, I would be the first one by a board member. I would make that motion to either remove them or ask them to resign. But the boards serve at our pleasure. We pick them. We vote for them because you may not have a difference of opinion or a philosophy. I have different philosophies than a lot of some of the board members that we pick, but I see that they're actually good individuals who are trying to do a job that we've asked them to do on their various boards and commissions. So that is all.
Okay, City Manager, do you have any additional remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City Attorney, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.